Yeah, I think it took me a while to figure out that just being myself was kind of the golden ticket to succeeding and enjoying it.
Welcome to the Funny in Failure podcast, a podcast that celebrates failure and shines the light on the emotional side of comedy, with yours truly, Michael Kahan.
It's a crazy and exciting period at the moment with Australian comedy, including the Melbourne International Comedy Festival. We have so many guests lined up, and there'll be a few bonus weeks where I'll be uploading 2 podcasts. So I recommend subscribing to the podcast and following Funny in Failure on Instagram so you don't miss out. I think you're going to be pleasantly surprised with what's in store. The lineup is amazing. Okay, that's the housekeeping. Let's get into it. Today's guest makes me laugh like none other. I love his skits and his comedy style. It was great to have chatted with Nick. He has a really unique outlook on life, and I love how he empowers himself by trusting his gut. He's a role model to many. I love him, and I think you will too. Okay, let's get into it. Nick White is a comedian, and he's one of the fastest rising faces in Australian comedy. With over 500,000 followers across social media, Nick is well known for his impressions, characters, and sketch comedy, which have earned him over 30 million likes on TikTok. The Brisbane-born comedian spent a few years in New York City, where he performed at Greenwich Village Comedy Club, the Comic Strip, and Broadway Comedy Club, where he earned a residency. After leaving his career in architecture to pursue full-time comedy in 2022, Nick's first solo stand-up show had a sold-out run across Australia's East Coast. The following year, Nick's comedy has also made an impact abroad, and in 2023, he performed a sold-out run of shows in London. He's also featured on the HuffPost, The Independent, Junkee, and you've probably heard his voice on Triple J Airwaves. He brings his new live show, I'm Scared Babe, to Australian audiences in 2025, so check them out. They're out now, and tour dates are in the episode notes. He'll also be releasing his comedy special out this week on YouTube, which is pretty exciting. So as you can imagine, we dive deep and we cover a lot, and we chat about his upcoming Australia tour, impersonators, being shy and coming out of his shell, his time in New York, leaving architecture, Sims obsession, following his intuition, gut, and funny, collaborating, plus plenty more. Before we get into this epic chat, in case you aren't aware, the videos are now available on YouTube under Michael Kahan. That's Kahan with a K, unless you're listening to it already. I'll still be posting snippets of these chats on Instagram under Funny in Failure, so check them out if you want to stay in the loop for upcoming episodes, or you want to ask a guest a question. I'd also love it if you would share the podcast or share your takeaways from the chat. It really motivates me, helps the podcast grow, and ensures I can lock in amazing guests like this one. And just as a final reminder, the podcast comes out at 3:30 Melbourne, Australian time, with the full video of the podcast to be released the following day. Okay, cool. Thank you. Let's get into it. I don't know if you remember this, but you had an impersonator, and I believe you got reported for wanting to report the impersonator. Can you tell me about that? That is hilarious. Well, it's probably not funny for you, but it's hilarious to hear it like that.
Oh, yeah. Well, there's a lot of TikTok accounts that pretend to be me. And then there was one that just kept gaining traction, and he was, or she, or they, I don't know who it was, but they were getting a lot of followers. Like they were racking up a few thousand.
Wow.
So then I kept reporting them for impersonating me, but because my account's not verified, they didn't do anything. And then I applied for verification and I got denied.
Really?
So, yeah. So then I just put it on my story and I was like, hey guys, if you see this account, can you please report them? And then TikTok sent me an official warning for bullying that person. They're like, yeah, you have an official strike now. And I was like, how do I get out of this? And then I was talking to a few people at TikTok Australia being like, help. And they were like, oh, we can't really do much. So then I just made a video ranting about it, and then they took it down. So they could have done something, but they just didn't.
That blows my mind. There's so many layers to this. One, you know, people on TikTok, surely they could have just verified you. You've got the numbers, you've got the profile. Tell me, surely, does that bother you?
It bothers me when there's other people making money from my content, because if this was an American-based creator, they'd be making money from all the views, and I don't make any money from my TikTok. So it only bothers me if people are stealing my identity, but other than that, I haven't applied since then. That was like a year ago. So yeah, or probably 2 years ago. I don't know.
Two
Yeah.
questions. I think you should get in some form of like profit sharing and pay all these random accounts in America and say you can get like 5% of the videos. You upload them as like Nicholas White the third or Nicholas White whatever. Then they'll make money off it and then just give it to you, even though you probably can't trust them.
I mean, I'd be fine with that business model. It's something.
You know, I've never brought this up before. One of my friends, I'm so embarrassed. I'm probably gonna have to cut this out, but I won't. One of my friends has the thickest tongue, like such a big tongue. It like
Oh,
covers his like. It's just an enormous tongue. I don't know how to
oh
explain it.
wow.
And he can do tricks because it's so big and so thick. And we were like 17 immature little boys, little Jewish boys. You had no idea about the deep dark web. And I would record his tongue dancing to different songs. And it blew up on YouTube. And I used to get private messages and people like, hey, can you send me private vids?
Oh,
Like slurp, slurp, slurp. Like there's so many. And I didn't like quite understand how bad it was. And he
yeah.
was fully game to do like 50% profit share. If I upload them, I do all the work and I just cover like his face. But once I realized how screwed up that was and like they wanted private shoots and how much would it cost to get him in, I'm like, I don't think I want to do that.
Yeah, that's a weird path to go down as a 17-year-old, especially.
Oh, it was OnlyFans before OnlyFans.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I know. But is it when you see the impersonator, I'm sure you're really annoyed, but was it also like, this is pretty cool that people are impersonating me? I'm sure after time, or not, they're scum.
Did I ever find it cool? I actually don't think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see. There's a few of them, but it's just when they start, like, yeah, gaining a bit of traction, and my mum will message me and be like, "Oh, I saw you uploaded this one. I thought you uploaded that months ago," and I'm like, "That's not me, mum." So, and then on Facebook too, there's impersonators, and they can make money on Facebook. And then one night I messaged a few of them. I was like, "Hey, can you please delete this page?" And then someone was like, "How much are you going to pay me?" And I was like, "Oh God."
What a piece of shit.
I'm like, yeah, it was weird, like talking to myself, but it wasn't
Yeah.
me. But I was like, "Ooh, I'm a businessman."
What it is cute though that your mum watches your videos. How do you feel about that? Does that like scare you to put anything out there or you're like, whatever?
I don't care that she watches them, but I used to not like it when she'd watch my TikTok lives because I used to go live on TikTok a lot, like probably like 3 or 4 times a week.
Oh wow.
Yeah, which I don't really do anymore, but I used to do it a lot. And then she would just, yeah, she pretended she didn't watch them, but then every now and then she'd be like, "Oh, and you said you're gonna make this video at some point." I'm like, "How do you know that?" She's like, "Oh, I think you mentioned it in one of your videos." I'm like, "No, I didn't." I'm like, "I said that on my live," and she's like, "Oh," and I'm like, "Just please don't
Sweetie.
watch them because I don't remember what I say and I just say anything, and it's just weird having knowing my mom's there. I'm like, it would just be strange. So, but I like that she watches all my content. She's very supportive. So is my dad.
That's so nice. Can you imagine like, oh, you're coming over for lunch? Like I'm busy. And you're like, well, I saw on the TikTok live you're doing absolutely nothing.
I
So I should call
know.
you.
I know it's kind of just like there's no excuses anymore. It's like they know everything. So I was like, you need to just and like, yeah, I don't really go live anymore, but she could easily be like, okay, I won't watch them, but she could have kept watching them. How would I know?
What if one of my friends, I know it's not the same, when his mum's this is when we were 18 and we're
Mm.
similar ages. His mum is super overprotective of him. So when he would drive, he just got his driver's license. She would tailgate him and pretend like, oh, I'm just going to the same cafe. And he said he found more than once, even once is too much. Once he went with friends at a coffee shop and he saw her at the corner, like in the movies, like with the newspaper, just peeking up and watching her. Like,
Really?
yeah.
It's like a movie.
Yep. I thought he was joking. And then he kept on giving me little snippets along the way. I'm like, no, you're not creative enough to come up with. And he's like, yeah,
That's
doesn't
kind
your
of
mum?
scary. That sounds like a horror movie.
And he's like, isn't that normal? And I'm like, no, dude. I'm like, and like the glass shatters. I'm like, no one does that.
No,
Yeah.
is his mom still like that?
Well, we did a program. So I traveled with him twice. She'd call him maybe 3 or 4 times a day in Europe.
Wow.
He's now moved to Melbourne. He's from Perth. I would think it would be similar given the distance. So just a lot of
Right.
calls like, what are you doing? Are you doing this? Fun
Wow.
stuff.
My parents are honestly the opposite. Like, they won't call me and they'll be like, "Oh, is it okay? Like, can we call you? We don't want to bother you." And I'm always like, "You can call me anytime." But like, they they're just really considerate people, and they're
That's
always like,
awesome.
"Oh, we know you're busy." And I'm like, "You can call me whenever. I don't. If I'm busy, I'll tell you." But yeah, they're very like, "Well, we don't want to be your parents who are uncool and calling you." I'm like, "Babe, like, own it. You're like, just call me. I don't care."
Schedule in a
Um,
Zoom and like, what are you doing on the third?
Yeah, well, I call them every weekend, but then sometimes I'll just call my dad randomly. He's like, "Oh yeah, I was gonna call you, but I thought you're probably busy." I'm like, "Just call me anyway."
That's
They're
so
the
funny.
my parents are just the nicest people. They're just so sweet.
You are one of the only people that I'm aware of, and this is I've done over 275 podcasts where your
Wow.
parents are actually supportive of your comedy career. It blows my mind. Like they were like sounds like pretty fully supportive, especially, having architecture. Every parent's dream to say my son's in architecture, and it seems like they've like fully embraced it the whole way.
Oh yeah, they kind of just they don't care what we do. I have a brother as well,
He was
and
a soccer player, I believe.
yeah, he pursued soccer basically straight out of school. Like, didn't study or anything, just pursued soccer. Maybe that's why they're kind of just like open to their kids kind of exploring these, you know, non-traditional career paths, I guess.
Mm.
Even with architecture, I remember in my first year, I just had this feeling that I was meant to be doing something else. And I said to them, I was like, "I'm
Oh,
going to drop out and I might go to acting school." And they were like, "Okay." And they were like, "Oh, you sure you don't want to finish your first year?" And I was like, "Oh, maybe." They're like, "Okay, just think about it." And then I did finish my first year. Then I changed my mind and stayed in it. But they're like, as long as you're making money, then like you can support yourself, and as long as you're happy, do whatever you want. Like, they really don't care.
good
They're
for
so
you.
chill.
That is
Yeah.
so awesome. That's so interesting with architecture that while you're doing architecture, you wanted to do acting. Did you? I know there's a bit of a timeline I want to figure out. You tried stand up once at Raw, and then you
Mm.
didn't come back to it for a few years. So we'll figure out what happened in between. So had you tried comedy at that stage when you were thinking of doing acting?
Had I done it yet? No, I hadn't done it yet. But yeah, I would have been 19 when I started thinking. I wanted to be an actor as a child, and I did a lot of drama in primary school.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, because I could do voices and stuff. So I wanted to be a voice actor
Oh,
originally
cool.
when I was around 8 or 7 or 8. Um, but then I became really shy, so I kind of steered away from anything performance based. Stopped doing drama and stuff at around 11 or 12. But then yeah, when I was like 19, I was like, I just feel like I'm meant to be performing, but I'm so shy, so I don't know how. And then I went to the acting school and like asked for a brochure. But even like asking her, I was so nervous, and I was like, I can't. If I'm nervous in this conversation, I can't perform in front of anyone. So then I was like, maybe this isn't right. Um, but then we got there in the end, so it's okay.
I don't think you realize how interesting that is. Like you can do so many different voices and different characters, and I believe you were doing this as a kid as well. But then at the age of roughly 11, you become shy all of a sudden. What does something happen, or is it just like figure out who you are? Like, can you tell me a bit more about that?
Well, I didn't realize yet that it's because I was gay, and then I guess when you're like around 11, people just become a bit more self-aware, I think, and everyone
Mm,
starts like going through puberty, and I really think like the boys and the girl groups become more like distinct.
yeah.
And I kind of just lost this energy of not caring what people think because I used to like come up with characters at lunchtime in grade 5 or grade 4, and then come into class and be like, "Hey, can I perform something? I just thought of something," and I'd perform in front of the class. Like, I didn't
Cool.
care. I just didn't care. But then yeah, around grade 6, I became really self-conscious and like just started to feel really uncomfortable as myself, and just became really hyper aware of uh I was like, where do I fit in? I just felt really uncomfortable and became really embarrassed. And then that lasted all through high school and grade 6 and grade 7. Yeah.
Wow, that's so crazy. So were you still doing the voices and stuff, but just with like your small group in like a more insular?
Yeah, with my family and then like my immediate family and then my small group. I was in like the really quiet, nerdy group because I was so like I just didn't want to be perceived by anyone. I
Oh,
really
like
wanted
just
to
hide.
be
Yeah.
invisible. Yeah. Which is stuff that I'm like unpacking in therapy now because it kind of still lingers in my psyche of, hating who I was and all that stuff.
Ah, interesting.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, I kind of just was really uncomfortable with who I was. But yeah, I definitely was still, I was able to make my group of friends laugh and I could do impressions of teachers and people in my group. And yeah, I was still always kind of had that ability, but I didn't know I was that good at it. I just thought, oh, I'm the funny one of this group.
That's cool. And I want to hear about how you meet some people at uni. So then did you kind of like, you mentioned that during high school you kind of like suppressed it a bit. So did you kind of put the acting and or comedy aspirations to the side and architecture was the way? Like why'd you pick architecture? Because you worked in it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think when I started to kind of shy away from drama and stuff, I really became more interested. Well, I've always liked drawing. So then I started making a lot of comic books when I was around 11 and 12.
Cool. That's
Yeah,
really cool.
my
What type of
friends did
stuff?
as well. Yeah, my
Yeah.
group of friends, we all liked drawing. And I just feel like sketchbooks of characters I'd made up and I'd make comics. And then when I was around 12, I started playing The Sims every day. So The Sims was my creative outlet for like architecture, like designing, but also storytelling and like I'd make stories and upload them to thesims2.com and like yeah,
That's
The
so
Sims was
cool.
a great creative outlet and I could just because I'm just yeah, I think I thought I was more interested in architecture, which I am, but The Sims was also good because I'm just so obsessed with people and like all different kinds of people and their stories. So yeah, The Sims was a huge part of my life, and I just got to go to The Sims 25th birthday party in Melbourne, which was like a dream come true.
How did you do they know that you're obsessed and you've been
Yeah, well, I made some content for them. I did a brand deal with them in might have been like October last year. But I make some YouTube videos where I make my characters on The Sims 4. So they
so
know I'm a fan.
that's so good.
And like it's so funny because if I ever go to brand events, I'm always like grateful to be there. But then at the Sims one, I just kept saying to all the EA stuff, I was like, I love you. Like I'll do anything to work with you again. I love The Sims. And they're like, okay, cool. Like, yeah, I love it. I love The Sims.
That is like a dream come true. One of my friends, he's looking for brand deals. He's got a lot of subscribers
Wow.
and I think he's looking into brand deals. And
Mm.
it's so cool that you can do something like that.
Yeah, yeah. It's awesome.
And also, I used to watch videos, it's been a while, where like the worst parts of Sim, where you could like screw over the families and make it as hard as possible, or leave them in the swimming pool for as long as possible. Did you ever have like these dark storylines and mess around with them, or was it more for comedy?
Oh yeah, I've done everything on The Sims. Like, yeah, I've probably done, yeah, I've done like crazy stuff. Like, but I also used to like a more long form, depressing story, like make a really like struggling single mother with six children, then like give myself the mission to like get them through a hard time. Like I used to really invest in the characters and really get to know them and be like, okay, now I need to like make this a happy ending where they live happily ever after. And I used to like, even though I used a lot of cheats and did some really crazy fun things with cheats, I would often just like challenge myself and use no cheats.
Would you mentioned that you used to do the TikTok lives? Could you ever stream yourself playing The Sims and do things like that? Because that would be interesting.
A lot of people tell me I should, and I am open to it. Um, but I also think The Sims is one thing that because I still play it now, maybe like once a month I play it.
Yeah.
Or sometimes when I'm home at my parents around Christmas, I have like a week where I play it every day. But for me, it's more like my switch off time.
Ah, nice. Don't want to
Yeah,
mix
it's kind of
business
like
and pleasure.
my inner child play time. You know what I mean? And I'm like,
Yeah.
I work a lot. Like, and my work is really fun. I'm very lucky. But I'm like, my therapist tells me like, you need to separate work and play sometimes. And I'm like,
Oh, I was
"No."
what? Yeah, no,
Yeah.
sorry, go on.
Oh, I was just like, yeah, I agree. So yeah, there's a few things I try to keep just for fun. Yeah.
I love that, and I love the separation. I had one of the guys from Auntie. Oh, I've had all the guys from Auntie Donna, and they were talking about when your hobby becomes your passion. And I feel like that's what's happened with you, because now I wonder, like, how consumed are you? Because like you're always uploading something. You've also got stand up. You're probably collaborating with people. You're doing podcasts and all of that stuff. Is it like, how do you like switch off? Because your hobby has now become your job, and that was play and fun. And I'm sure it's still play and fun, but it's still a different type of play and fun.
Yeah, it's a very tricky thing. And it's something I've intentionally been thinking about more and been putting more effort into identifying like, yeah, I think you need a balance of childlike free play, but also like hard work as well. And
Agreed.
I think for me it's as long as, yeah, in order to be still feel excited and inspired and passionate about comedy and creativity, it just has to be work that feels right. Like I even have characters now that people will like in the comments are like, please do this character again. But I'm like, that feels like I'm forcing it. You know what I mean? Because I'm like one of my corporate characters, I still do him occasionally, but I don't work in a corporate environment anymore. So I'm not seeing that every day and getting inspired by it. I'm like, I don't want to force it. So yeah, I often do sit down and journal and like figure out what is a really exciting yeah, just whatever makes me feel excited when I think about achieving it or just creating it. I kind of let that guide my decision about yeah, just moving forward, like what I want to work on. It has to excite me. I have to find it funny. I have to just find it, yeah, exciting and a challenge as well, I guess. Yeah, I
You've
don't want to stay stagnant.
you've reached enlightenment, because a lot of people, when they're even in this field, they feel they need to do, oh, this had success, I need to do it. But you're also here to play and have fun as well as earn money and be successful. And there's that
Mm,
balance. And it's very easy. I've seen it heaps, and I'm sure I've done it as well from the creative side, just trying to churn out like things that don't really excite you. But then it leads to burnout and a whole bunch of things, and maybe the content's not you. I love that you follow excitement. How did you come up with that? Because that's like 30 years stuff of realizing, you know what, I also need to enjoy this as well.
yeah, well, I think it's kind of just based on evidence because it's like I've recognized that my audience just really love it when I be myself. And I know I could like look at algorithms and figure out what does well, and like I know I
Yeah.
could be, if I really wanted to, I could be churning out content that every video gets a million views. But then it's like, do I really even find this funny? Like I know that I could like look at the algorithms and what's performing well for other people, but I just see myself as an artist, and I think a lot of people might cringe if I say that because they see me as just like a TikToker. But
Oh,
I've just
I agree.
always kind of, yeah, I've always just kind of made things that I find funny and excite me because all my favorite artists or performers, they just I feel like they just trust their gut and they make what feels good. So yeah, I just trust my gut a lot with a lot of my decisions, whether how big or small, like whether I
Cool.
move cities or change jobs or start a new character or like anything. And if I try a new character and it flops terribly, I'll be like, okay, I won't do that again. But there's a few things I do that don't really take off, but I find them so fun, I just keep doing them. So I think, yeah, I forgot the question, but yeah, I just
No,
kind
no,
of,
you've answered it.
oh,
I
cool.
and I love it when people talk about their intuition and trusting their gut, because I see it as a compass for life, and everyone's intuition and gut is different. And it just excites me on so many levels, because especially creativity, and then also in life, there's no one way to do anything. I know you're an architect. I used to be an accountant. They were like, you do this and then you get to the next level, but you still need to rely on your intuition and all of that stuff. So I think it's amazing that you follow that, because as you said, sometimes it might not do as well, and then you can get kind of stuck. And there are plenty of stand-up comedians that I've seen, and there's no judgment whatsoever, where they might repeat the same thing, and they've done the same material for like 3 years, and you know that they're just doing that maybe for money or for whatever reasons. And when
Mm.
you feel like someone's just doing it for potentially the wrong reasons or their wrong reasons, you can feel it. It's exciting, it's fun, it's like contagious when you see someone like yourself doing something that you love. Like I genuinely think that spark it's like a flame, it spreads.
I agree. Yeah, totally.
And I also, it's very similar to what you said. I have a quote. You have to do what you find is funny. Make sure you're enjoying it. So I assume there were probably phases in your life, and natural, we've all done this, I've done this 100 times, where maybe you were doing it for different reasons. Did you ever have that, or has it always been playing fun from the get-go?
Do you mean with comedy?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it took me a while to figure out that just being myself was kind of the golden ticket to succeeding, and enjoying it. Because
Yeah.
definitely when I started in Brisbane, like consistently gigging in like 2018, or 2017.
Yeah.
And yeah, and like I was actually for the first like two or so years of doing stand up, very dry, very deadpan, very low energy, like a very Australian kind of style in a lot of ways,
Mm.
which is good for when you're finding your voice. And I hadn't come out yet, and like I was kind of it was a bit of a persona,
Yeah.
but I didn't even think to do characters, which I've been doing since I was 7. Because I was like, to me, it didn't even register. Like I loved Chris Lilly, all his work, and the Amanda Show as a kid. Like that was my favorite show.
I love that as well.
Yeah, but for me it was like, oh, I just need to be like the Australian stand-ups I see, quite dry, quite deadpan. But then once I started on that in like 2022 and people resonated with my characters, I was like, whoa, I guess that makes sense because I've just always done them. They're like part of me that like it's just part of my social dynamic. I'm always going in and out of character. So yeah, I think once I just realized like, oh, being myself and trusting what comes naturally to me and what I genuinely find funny, even with my stand up now, I just be myself on stage.
That's so cool.
And it's so fun. I just want to make sure I'm enjoying it because I'm like, I did my show 58 times last year. I'm like, I don't want to do that if I'm not enjoying it. It's
Yeah.
58 hours of my life.
And also the practice, the prep, the whole.
Yeah. And like, not every show went well, but as long as I'm having fun, then it's like, okay, I'm going to bomb, but it's going to be a fun bomb.
Oh, I have so many questions, and also so many comedians. It can take like 6, 10 years to kind of figure it out, and you figure it out within 2 years. And I love that TikTok.
It took me like, I reckon I started being myself a bit on stage only on my first tour. So maybe it took me about 5 years to kind of be myself on stage.
Regardless, I know there was like things there, but I just love the idea of doing that because when you're trying to embrace someone else, you're never going to be, you lose a part of yourself. It's not
Totally.
necessarily your style. So that's really cool. And so when TikTok came out and you're getting all this feedback, was it like a light bulb? Be like, oh my God, my whole life has changed. I can do this thing in another form as well.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, well, I don't know. I kind of always had characters. But when I was a kid, my characters were just, they came out of thin air. They were kind of fictional.
Yeah.
But then I guess during high school and during uni, most of my characters, well, they weren't really characters. They're just like impressions of university lecturers or like someone on a TV show, like making fun of them, like someone from Big Brother or something, or just like impressions of people. And I'd kind of base a character on that person. Um, but then, yeah, like having TikTok at my disposal and just being like, oh, let's just do this character that was inspired by my boss just then. And then once people really were like, whoa, that's so accurate, that's so funny, that's so relatable, um, it kind of just clicked. I was like, oh yeah, like I've always been good at impressions and characters. So yeah, it was kind of just like a light bulb moment of like, oh yeah, like of course this makes sense for me to do and find success in. It's like it's one of the things that comes the most naturally to me in my life. So, but I hadn't really thought of it. I really thought stand up was the route for me, which it is. I'm still doing stand up every year, like a show every year. But yeah, it was kind of exciting because I hadn't really it wasn't really the plan, I guess, but it caught me off guard and I loved it. I still love it.
It's so nice that you can find that this avenue that comes about and you're still doing comedy, but you just kind of like tweak or, like pivot in a way because you're still doing stand up, but
Mm.
find a way to like shine even more. And then you can merge the two as well. I love that. And I love the idea of being able to, merge them. Do you remember when you got your first viral video where you're like, oh my God, I've hit.
Yeah. Well, my first two viral ones, they weren't really, I don't know if they really count because they were just kind of like me with text on the screen with like a viral sound. So it wasn't really me doing anything. But then my first viral one was like with an idea of mine doing a character kind of
Yep.
was with my friend Tilly at the start of 2022. So yeah, about 3 years ago. Um, and it was called What American TV Sounded Like as an Australian Kid.
Yeah.
And that was our first series, which did really well. And it kind of is what propelled both of us to keep going. And now we've both found success like individually. But yeah, we loved it. And we still like even last night was because we have our characters, Cody and Mackenzie. I'm Cody, she's Mackenzie, these American kids. And we still talk about them like not every day because we live in different cities, but we talk about them all the time. And we're like, oh my God, like we'll send each other stuff like this is so Cody, or like Mackenzie would do this. Like Tilly and I are obsessed with our characters. So yeah, that was our first series, which was really fun.
Do you do screenwriting? Like, do you want to create a show? Have you ever tried pitching that with all the characters, like a
Um,
skit?
that is one idea. Tilly and I had an idea to do a sketch show. And we applied for Fresh Blood, you know that thing?
I
Yeah.
think that's how Auntie Donna did that, and it helped
Yeah,
her. Yeah.
yeah. Which was exciting, but like the ideas we're coming up with, but we didn't get that. And then I moved to Melbourne, Tilly's in Sydney, but I have some ideas at the moment. I actually have one idea, which I won't say yet because it's very like I've only told one friend,
Yep.
but it's like really exciting and I
Oh,
really want to do it.
I'll see if I can get it off you off air. That's so
Oh yeah,
exciting.
I'll tell you after.
No, I'm all for that. I do screenwriting and with ideas. I don't know if you've read Is a Big Magic, where you don't share ideas until they're more fully formed. Because if you
Mm,
say it to the wrong person, like if I was to go, my parents are super supportive, but if I was to tell them about one of the ideas of a dark comedy, they're gonna kind of like destroy it. Whereas if I do it with a collaborating buddy, like I know you've got Tilly, for example, I collaborate with, I've got some other writers, and you can like build it up together. But you have to be very careful. And I'm not coming from fear because you can't share all your ideas with everyone. You want
yeah.
that idea, you need to like cherish it as a little baby, let it grow and evolve, and then you can share it with the world. Do you have a similar mindset? Are you aware of this?
Yeah, my problem is I get so excited and I tell everyone everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then that kind of backfires because everyone will be like, "Oh, how's that thing coming along?" And I'm like, "What? Oh no, I'm not doing that anymore."
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I'm trying to be more like that. My friend Jess Fuchs, who's a comedian in Sydney, I don't know if you know her,
Yep.
but her and I kind of every day we're back and forth talking about ideas and just talking about anything. So she's the first person I tell, and she knows this idea, which I'll tell you after.
Oh, I'm so excited for you. I
Um,
love the enthusiasm.
yeah, because yeah, writing a show to me is like definitely something I will do at some point because it's such an exciting thing. And I mean, I love TV. It was my best friend when I was a child.
Yeah, same.
Yeah,
Well, you
so
like The Simpsons. I know you didn't say this. You like The Simpsons. I also love The Amanda Show. You're the only one to bring up The Amanda Show, and I'm so glad someone has because that was a really good show as well.
it was great. And I mean, I didn't know what SNL was at the time because I was
Same.
8 years old.
Yeah.
And I used to see that show on Nickelodeon and be like, this is incredible. It's just like so ridiculous. There's so many funny characters. Um, I was just obsessed with it because I liked doing characters just every
Yeah.
day. So it was like it felt like it was made for me. I loved the Amanda Show.
That's so amazing. And you were saying with Tilly, I cut you off. Tilly? Or with the T?
Oh, Tilly, yeah,
Tilly.
yeah.
But I want to build up to this because I'm glad that I think it's really important in life to have like collaborating buddies as well, especially in creativity. And you found her, which is amazing. I want to build up to this though, because this is really interesting. You work as an architect. Sorry, you're at uni, you're very shy, and then you meet four people, and that kind of like
Mm,
changes your life. Can you tell me what they do for to work on your shyness and maybe your confidence? And yeah,
yeah. Oh, cool. How do you know that?
I'm well researched. I
Oh,
also have a
no.
camera just behind you.
Eh,
You're like,
um,
fuck, I'm gonna have to do a sweep of the house.
yeah. So it's really funny because yeah, when I wanted to drop out and be an actor, I remember in my first year of architecture school, something just didn't feel right, at least in the first semester. I kept thinking like, this doesn't feel right. Like in my gut, I was like, I don't think this is what I meant to do, but I'm glad I stayed for the rest of the year because towards the end of my first year, I met these four friends, Naushin, Marcos, Alvin, and Lexi, who were just like this group of four kids who were just so cool. Like they just oozed coolness, like four creatives who were like just like really confident, and all four of them were so different. Um,
Nice.
and I like was such a little nerdy kid, and I was just starting to maybe like come out of my shell a bit. Like it was the first year where I was like, maybe I'll be an actor, and I was like, no, that's silly. Maybe I don't know, like I don't know. I was at this year where I just wanted more from life. I just had this, not, I don't know if it was a calling, but I just felt like there was
Yeah.
something bigger that I was meant to do than just like be this little quiet kid that would go to uni, then go home and like every day. And yeah, I met them, and then they were just really cool. That's the only way I can describe them. Like really interesting. And they were all planning their student exchange for like the following year. And it wasn't even a question. It was just like, they're just like, oh, like, where are you going? And I was like, what? Going where? What? So then I was like, oh yeah, I'm going somewhere. So then I applied as well. And I just feel like I was meant to meet them because they just made me realize how interesting and funny I was. I didn't really even think much about myself yet. Yeah, and then they just really, the experiences I had as a kind of snowball effect of meeting them were just life-changing. Because if I never studied abroad, I never would have moved to New York, because like one of them moved to New York as well. And then, yeah, and I'm still really close with all of them. But yeah,
Amazing.
I think it was just the first time in my life where I just felt really inspired by people, and just, yeah, really connected with people that excited me so much and made me think there was so much more in life I could be doing.
We all need, I can't remember their names. We all need people like that in our lives. That is so cool. But also on you, because you're shy. And I don't know how you actually became friends with them. Even if they said hi, you could have just been like, hi, and then like walk away. Like to actually embrace it, to honor that calling. I think that's pretty cool as well.
Yeah, it took a while. I would sit, because they were in one of my classes, and then I would always be like, I'm going to sit with them this week. And then I'd get there and I'd chicken out and sit at the quiet table. I'd be like, oh God, I should have done it. Then I'd
I
hear
don't
them
know.
having fun. And then I think one lesson I sat with them and I was like, oh, I sat at their table. I was like, hi. And then, but then I was in another class with Naushin, who was one of them. And her and I just really bonded in that class. And then she said to the others, she's like, oh, we should sit with that Nick guy next time. And my friend Marcos was like, apparently he was like, nah, that guy's so quiet. And I was like, oh, but yeah, but then, yeah, and then I just started sitting with them and we became friends, and the rest is history.
I like how you look back. If you didn't meet them, then this wouldn't have happened. Then you wouldn't have gone to New York. Do you think like that? Or was it just one of those moments where you're like, wow, the universe or whatever you want to call it is provided?
Oh, I think like that with everything.
Oh,
Like everyone
nice.
I meet, I'm like, I was meant to meet you for a reason.
Cool.
Even Tilly, like, it was so random. I met Tilly in New York
Yeah.
because I lived in New York for 2.5 years. And then I met her probably like 3 weeks after moving there, because my friend had a friend and her friend was Tilly. So my friend didn't even know Tilly, but he was like, "Oh, my friend has a friend who lives there and she's looking for friends." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And they're like, "Yeah, she does like sketch comedy and stuff." And I was like, "Okay, cool, I'll meet her." And then I met her, and then we got along so well. And then if we never made that sketch together, like we only have our careers now because of each other. Like it
Yeah.
all just worked. We really brought out each other's inner children out in Sydney when we lived there at the same time. Like, and we were just like each other's biggest cheerleaders, like being like, "You're so funny, no, you're so funny." And then, yeah, it really just, I'm like, I was meant to meet Tilly. And then through Tilly, I met my other two best friends who I ended up living with in New York. Like, I just feel like everything is meant to happen the way it does. At least that's how I kind of see a lot of my friendships and decisions that I make.
Yeah, I agree. But and it goes back to when you're talking about intuition, when you allow for that, when you like go on that calling, as you said, or you feel that excitement. Generally, although life doesn't always go up, but you know, it definitely leads to like more excitement and an interesting journey. So I love that. That's so cool.
Yeah, totally. Even like, and then there's decisions I make where, yeah, bad things happen. I go through a bad time, but I'm like, I still feel like I was meant to go through
Yeah, I'm
it.
the
Yeah,
same.
totally.
Every like negative experience, like let's say from the creative side, like when I thought this is a long story short, I brought it up before, but I had a TV developmental deal. I was going to move to LA. Then I realized they're narcissists and they're like abusive to other people and like the whole works. And this went for 6 months. I'm about to move to America, had to get lawyers involved. And it was the most stressful thing ever. I still look back and go like, I'm not happy I had that, but I needed that to happen because it led to wouldn't want it to happen again. Super stressful, but it's so cool how what came out of that. So I like that, and I actually think it's for me a healthier way to be because there's so much that can pull us down. But when we do, because I don't do it all the time, when we do, can look back at like the little bits and go, "Oh, that's cool that it happened." But it brings me up. I don't know if it's the same with you.
Yeah, I agree because it's like I don't really regret much. So I think it's a good way to just learn from everything. Yeah.
That's a good mindset. I like it. And so you're in New York. You said, especially at the start, you felt a lot more free. I think you're doing a lot more gigs. So in Brisbane, I believe you do raw competition the first time, and then you don't do it for a few more years. Did
Yeah.
you restart it in Brisbane or restart in New York?
Um, oh no, so I did Raw when I was 20 and then again when I was 23.
Yeah.
Is that right? Or 24? No, 24. No, I don't know. Doesn't matter. And then then I started gigging a bit. I maybe did like 5 gigs and then entered Raw for a third time.
Nice.
And then, yeah, kind of for my last 8 months in Brisbane, I was gigging regularly, like multiple gigs a week. And then I moved to New York. So I'd been doing comedy consistently for like 9 months, I reckon, when I moved to New York
Wow.
when I was 25.
Was it easy? Well, it's not easy, but in New York, there's cultural stuff. The open mics are different. Was it an easier transition given that you had kind of all that comedy experience?
I don't know. Like I hit the ground running. I did a few open mics, but the open mics in Brisbane would always have a full audience. Well, not always,
Oh,
but most of the time it'd be at like a pub or like I don't know. There's always a crowd. And then in New York, the only audience were other open micers who would just be on their phone.
that's the
And
reverse here. Like when I did it in Melbourne, there was like 5 people and everyone's just looking at their notepad and trying to
oh
figure out what.
right,
But there's been many
yeah,
years, so I don't know how it. Yeah. Anyway,
yeah. I think there's it
waves.
fluctuates.
Yeah.
Yeah, but at the time that was kind of how I perceived it. And then. I had a rough time in my first few months in New York because I worked at a cafe and I'd start at 6 a.m. and I lived in Brooklyn and the cafe was in the city, like in Manhattan.
Yeah.
So then by the time I'd get home, I'd be like, oh, the last thing I want to do is go back into the city and do an open mic where I have to pay $5 to do it. Also, I was really poor for my
Yeah.
first like 4 or 5 months there. So yeah, it was kind of, I lost a bit of spark with stand up. Like I hit the ground running, but then after like the first month or two, I wasn't gigging much. Um, but then I met Jess Fuchs, she lived in New York as well, and she ran like an Australian show.
Oh, yeah.
So I met a few Australians, and then Jess and I would kind of like start writing together every now and then. And then I came out, so I started doing queer open mics and queer rooms, which just opened up another whole community.
I would also feel like mentally that would be refreshing as well. Like
Oh
you could
yeah.
be, yeah.
Oh, it was the best.
Oh,
That was
nice.
2019. That was just it was one of my favorite years of my life. Just
Not
so
many people would
liberating.
say that, but it depends where in 2019.
Oh
'Cause
yeah.
no, I'm
Well, I
just,
guess. Oh, you mean like COVID?
yeah, yeah, yeah. And you're in
Oh,
New York.
gosh. Yeah. Well, yeah, I know. But yeah, that was such a fun year. And then that was just such a transformative year, I guess.
Can you
Um,
can you tell me more about that? Because that's pretty. I would assume, coming out of I forget what age you are. You're probably around 25.
yeah, yeah.
So you've obviously been thinking about it for a while. Then to come out in this environment, you've got your close friends around you. What was that like?
Oh, it was the best. I mean, yeah, because I was 24 in Brisbane, doing my master's and like working at an architecture firm as well. And then I was like, oh, this just doesn't feel right either. You know what I mean? I was like,
Yeah.
something feels wrong. Um, yeah, like I really loved uni. That's why I stretched out my degree as long as I could. But then when I was just working full time after that, I was
Understand.
like, I don't know. And like, I know I should come out at some point, but I just don't want to because I don't really have many gay friends here, and it's just like Brisbane, and like I don't want to be
Yeah.
like the gay friend, you know what I mean? Like, and then I got to New York, and I was like, oh, everyone here is gay,
Yeah.
cool. Like, it just didn't feel like a big deal. So then I started going on dates with guys in New York, and yeah, and it was just like I just felt like I could be myself and without
Nice.
feeling like uncomfortable or weird. And then yeah, and I told my best friend Naoshin, and yeah, it was just fun. And then 2019 just started going on lots of dates and started going to pride things and started doing queer shows and mics, and it was just a really exciting, liberating time. And I was like 25, 26, so I had a lot of energy still. So I could like
You're
go out
still
during
young.
the
We're like the
week and
same
then like
age.
I
Yeah.
literally used to like go to concerts and get drunk on like a Wednesday and then be at work at 8:30 the next day in the city. And I'd be like, I would need a few days to recover from that
I
now.
couldn't think of anything worse now,
I
but back then
know.
that's the life.
I used to do it all the time, and I'm like, I'm glad I enjoyed my 20s because now I'm such a not a hermit, but like I spend a lot of time at home.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm like, should I be out doing something? I'm like, I've done enough, babe. Let's just
Yeah.
get out.
The comedy needs me.
Yeah, yeah.
And what was it like the train? I know you had a difficult time in New York and you moved back, and I assume COVID's also a factor because you still stayed, I believe, at least a year or roughly a year
Yeah,
during
1 year. Yeah.
during COVID stuff, and then you come back. Was that hard? Because although I don't want to forget about COVID, but was that hard because you've been free, you've come out, you're being new, you're like partying, you're having fun. Was that a hard transition then coming back to Australia?
It was like the low point of my life, thus far. Well,
No,
yeah,
no.
the reason I moved home was because it's kind of what some of my upcoming stand-up show is about. Because I have really bad health anxiety. And yeah, in like January 2021, it just became like debilitating. I could barely sleep and like would be scared to like leave the house on days, and it was just like not healthy. And like, yeah, and the medical system there scared me too much to even like the thought of like trying to go to doctors and stuff there was just too scary.
Yeah.
And I just felt like I had no decision but to come home. I was kind of just like paralyzed with fear. So yeah, and I hadn't done stand up in a year because like I mean I did one outdoor gig in the summer, but then those stopped as well. So
Yeah.
it definitely felt like starting from the ground up like all over again because
Oh, wow.
coming back living in the Sunshine Coast with my parents and doing some gigs in Brisbane. Some people knew who I was, but I still, I was only because yeah, we stopped in it was like 2 years in pretty much because a year of nothing. Yeah, and I was just like, I have to find another architecture job, which that's what I was trying to like get out of. And but I guess with Australia, the freedom was like no visas, so I was like, I can hustle with comedy as much as I want now. And then yeah, I downloaded TikTok as soon as I moved home because I was like, because my friend in New York who I lived with, she was always like, "You need to get TikTok," and I was like, "I'm 27, I'm too old for that." And then I
That's
got home and I
amazing.
was like, "Okay, I'm gonna try because I'm desperate."
Yeah.
Which now that's a ridiculous way of thinking. Like anyone can go on TikTok.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I just 2021 though, there was a lot of setbacks because then I moved to Sydney because I
Yep.
got a job there, and then 2 weeks later we went into lockdown there for like 4 months. So that was funny. But yeah, that was just a
Like,
bad time for everyone. So I'm not
yeah.
gonna sit here and be like,
No,
yeah,
no, but
20 and 2021 were hard for me, but it was like it was
e-
pretty rough too.
everyone had a unique experience, and it's okay to
Yeah,
feel those feelings. Was
yeah,
it and you can go as deep as you want. And I also want to talk about your show, which is called Unscared Babe. And if people, you're traveling around Australia, and tickets are in the episode notes. I forget what I was saying. Oh, yeah. So there's a combination of, I assume, like the freeness, you coming out. If I'm saying anything incorrectly, please interject. Obviously, COVID, comedy stuff. Was it a combination of the whole, and maybe not wanting to do architecture? Because I know when I was traveling and I was working as an accountant, I had like something didn't feel right in my body, and I didn't have the awareness to realize, why am I showing up in weird ways? And I realized it's because I was doing something I felt I wasn't meant to do,
yeah.
and that caused a lot of internal anxieties.
Wait, so what was the question
Oh,
exactly?
sorry. So was it a combination of all of that stuff? Like what helped you after 2021? or what helped you feel better?
Oh, what helped me feel better? Well, I think, yeah, I don't know. It took a while because even in Sydney, it took me months to get on my feet after that lockdown as well. And then I hated my share house. Like it was just depressing.
Mm.
It definitely took me a while. That year sucked. And then 2022, I moved into this new apartment, had more space, felt like I could really be creative in the space I was in more so.
Cool.
And then like every job that I've had almost, I've always made the most of it. I just try to like really connect with the people and have fun. So I really liked my architecture job in Sydney as well. And then yeah, and then at the start of 2022, TikTok kind of had my first few viral videos, and then yeah, it just started feeling like okay, now we're getting somewhere. Like I'm starting to feel more like I'm hitting my stride. I'm like making friends. I'm feeling comfortable in this city. I'm connecting with people at work. I'm making comedian friends and collaborators and like my friends from New York, like Tilly and Jess and Katie, all lived in Sydney. So I had a good like
Ah,
network.
nice.
Yeah, that's why I chose to move to Sydney over Melbourne when I first got back from New York because I had a better kind of community
Yeah.
or just a better network. Just people that I was close with, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then yeah, 2022 was just a good year of feeling like I was getting back on track and not regretting the move home, I guess, because I feel like I don't regret the move. I never regretted it because I felt like I had no choice,
Yeah.
but I was pretty depressed about it for a while because I loved New York. If there was no pandemic, I'm sure I'd still be there. I loved it so much.
Would you ever go back?
I'm scared of America right now. I don't know if I would.
Pretending that everything's sunshine and rainbows, would you go back or are you happy where you're at?
I'm happy with where I'm at now.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean, and I am lucky that, I mean, hopefully I can tour the US one day and go back in that sense.
Oh, that'd
And
be
I have
cool.
been back. I went in 2023 for a trip, but I don't know if I could live there again. And I got a dog. I have a puppy now. So
Yeah,
I
yeah,
kind of,
yeah,
the
yeah.
puppy was kind of my way of being like, I'm going to stay in Melbourne for quite a while.
And what made you pick Melbourne? So you had all the people in Sydney. Why Melbourne? I agree, Melbourne's way better. I can go on rants about how much I don't like Sydney. First of all, the traffic, they're not grids. If you miss a turn, I don't even know when you turn. Oh my God. Okay.
Yeah, you're completely right. I don't know. I just like, I always thought Melbourne made more sense for me. And even before I moved to New York, I was like, oh, I'll just move to Melbourne. But because I was like, moving to New York sounds too hard. But then I had a dream that I was hanging out with my best friend in New York. So then I woke up and was like, okay, I'm gonna go to New York.
No way. That's so cool. And was it just like as clear as daylight? Like, this is what I'm
Yeah.
doing.
Yeah, it was a dream. I had a dream that I was hanging out with my friend Naushin, who was living there. And then I woke up and was like, no, I have to move to New York. I didn't have that dream for no reason because the dream felt so
Oh, I love
fun.
those dreams. Like, you feel like it's happened or it is happening or
Yeah.
what? Do you write
I
your
thought it was
dreams?
real. And then I woke up and was like, whoa, I don't have dreams like that often. Only when I feel like when I really need to, when like I have a big decision coming up or something.
Do you
Yeah.
meditate? Because you seem like pretty in tune.
Wait, what was that?
Do you meditate? Because you seem pretty in tune with things.
I sometimes, not much. I journal a lot.
Yeah.
And I don't meditate as much as I'd like to. I used to pretty frequently, but yeah, I chose so yeah, Melbourne was always a city I wanted to live in at some point. But I just didn't really know many people here. So I chose Sydney, but then I tried so hard to vibe with Sydney, but I just couldn't. Like I mean, I enjoyed my time there. I had a
Yeah.
great friends. I loved my job. I loved my apartment, but I was just like, what is this city's vibe? I can't feel its soul or energy, which all sounds so wanky, but I was just like, I have no idea what this city is. And like
Yeah.
Brisbane, I love. Prague, I loved when I studied there. New York, I loved. And I just felt nothing for Sydney. So then every time I come to Melbourne for the festival, I just really connected with the city. So I was like, I'm just going to move to Melbourne once my lease is up. And I
Nice.
love Melbourne so much. It's like, it just feels right.
Did you have much connections in Melbourne?
I had a few. I mean, I have some great friends here, but Sydney was definitely where I had like closer friends, like the ones that I can just call and be like, I'm coming over.
Yeah.
So I do miss having that. But I was in Sydney last week, and then 2 weeks before that, my best friends were here. So we're lucky that because we're all comedians,
So
we can
close.
just like we travel a lot anyway. But
Yeah.
I do have some great friends in Melbourne, and I have my dog now. So if I'm ever lonely, he's always here and he hangs out with me. But yeah, Melbourne, I love Melbourne.
Cute. I'm so happy to hear that. Where were you in Sydney? So you don't need to tell me the area. Was it like east, south, west? Just so I can
Um,
like hate it more, that area.
oh well, I spent most of my time in Ultimo. I was there for 2 years.
I don't know where that is.
It's near Glebe, near Glebe.
Okay. I still I have no idea. I was just in the
Oh,
east. I
like
went to Sydney twice in the
between
east.
like Chinatown and Glebe, like Newtown, like kind
Yeah,
of big
yeah, 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 yeah.
city. Yeah,
I
it
was
was a
just
very convenient location.
I was just in Sydney twice in 1 month for two weddings. And the weddings were lovely, but the player like, what is happening at this place? And I know I'm going to offend so many people, and good
Me too.
because Melbourne,
I love Sydney. I love visiting Sydney,
yeah,
but
visiting,
yeah, I was
yeah.
like, this just doesn't feel like where I'm supposed to live.
You answered it well. I agree. Everyone has different callings, and for us, it's Melbourne at the moment. So we
Yeah.
don't get angry at us. Don't send us any hate mail.
Sorry. Oh, no, sorry.
Yeah, I told Nick about the Nasari rule. And what was that moment like? So you're doing architecture. Oh, sorry, you quit architecture. What was that moment like?
It was terrifying. It was so scary. Oh my God, bad. Yeah, it was really scary. And like, but I just couldn't hold it off any longer because I was like, okay, I'll quit at the end of the year. And then I'd work from home and I'd call my dad all the time and be like, I want to quit. And he's like, okay, quit. And I'm like, I can't quit yet. What are you talking about? He's like, okay, then don't quit. Like, what do you want from me? And then his advice was, you should just stay till the end of the year then. Because this was like October, November, we were talking.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, okay. And then one day I was just like, I actually can't. Like, I'll go insane. I can't. I don't know what it was. It was just a feeling like you're not meant to be doing this 1 minute longer. Like, I liked that job. I really did. And I really like, yeah, I never hated working in architecture. I knew it wasn't really for me,
Yeah.
but I never hated it. I was never like every day like, oh, I hate this. But in those last few weeks, I just felt like I had to quit. So then I did, and then as soon as I talked to my boss and went back to my desk, I was like, what the hell? What the fuck am I doing? And I like freaked out and then went to Coles that night, bought heaps of like tins of tuna and soup and like all this food because I'm like, I'm gonna be starving in a few weeks. But then literally like the day after I quit, I landed my biggest brand deal at that time.
Good
And
for
then
you.
later that week, I got like two more. So I think the universe,
Whoa,
here you go, like you did the right thing.
you were
Um,
rewarded.
yeah, but the first day or so, I was like, what, why did I just quit my good job? Like it was a good job and they were like paying me well and they were so good to me. And I was just like, but then I was like, you know what? No, I listened to my gut. And then on my last day, because every place I worked at, I would sometimes save some of the work I had designed. I'd email it to myself for a portfolio in the
Oh,
future.
nice. Yeah.
And then on my last day, I was like, oh, should I like send myself some work? And I was like, actually, no, I'm not going to because I won't need it. And I met my coworker was like, just do it. Like you have nothing to like, it's good to have. And I was like, no, because that's like doubt. That's doubting that comedy won't
Yeah.
work out.
Fully committed.
Yeah, I was like, I'm not going back to this because I'm not meant to. So I just didn't do it. And then yeah.
That you don't understand how wild it is. When I was an accountant, there was a point where I just knew I used to get really bad back issues at work.
Mm,
And I didn't have awareness that someone I was seeing, a practitioner I was seeing, and said, have you noticed that your back's not sore on the weekends or, outside of work? And then my mind, it blew up. It's like I got red pilled, as they say. I left the matrix and I realized that I had actually like manifested physical issues because I hated it so much and I knew it wasn't my calling, it wasn't my purpose. And I actually physically couldn't go. And as soon as I quit, I didn't have any back issues. Like literally, like I was like, what is happening? I've gone on to study that stuff as well. But it just blew my mind that when I had let go, I wouldn't, I'm not sure if rewarded's the right word, but it just felt like I released so much. And it feels like,
yeah.
yeah, feels like you had that as well.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I remember there was instant fear though.
Of course. Yeah, I had that as well.
But then I
So
think once I landed that work, that felt like a bit of security. And then I was like, no, I'm really trusting this decision. And then the last few weeks at that job were really fun because I knew I'd made the right decision, and I loved my coworkers there. They were the best. Yeah, and I still see them sometimes. So it was the right decision. But it felt terrifying. But it was also like, I decided during my master's I wanted to be a comedian. So it had been 5 years of me working towards this point. But then when I got to that point, I was like, oh God, I'm scared bad. But then, yeah, it was fine.
Is that why the show's called I'm Scared Babe, for literally that moment as well?
Oh, the show is about anxiety. Yeah. More specifically, health anxiety. So, yeah, it's just, I developed this character last year called the Babe Friend. And I think it was kind of influenced by one of my friends who's a comedian who she says babe a lot. And I went to dinner with her one night and she's just like contagious, her energy.
Yeah.
And then that combined with this other kind of character I was doing where if my friend would come over, she'd be like, can I have a cup of tea? And I'd be like, babe, of course you can, babe. Like, what do you want? And then, yeah, combination of that has just led to me saying babe a lot. And then when I thought of the idea for the show, I was like, I'm scared, babe. And I just went with it.
Oh, very nice. And how's the show been going? Feeling confident?
Actually, yeah, I'm excited for it. Like I find it fun. I've done 2 trial shows and I found them pretty fun.
Cool.
Yeah, so we'll see how it's received, but as long as I'm having fun with it, it's pretty silly. Yeah, I'm excited.
Nice. And why do you want to talk about, I think it's very cool, but why discuss mental health?
It's like sadly, it's just a big part of my life, you know. It's a big part of who I am. Like anxiety is just, yeah, it's been a big part of my life pretty much. So, and all my shows, like my 2 other shows I've done were a lot about growing up shy and like gay and just, yeah, like I just like to laugh about things that I've dealt with so they don't feel as scary or as serious. And like laughing about them with a room full of people, even though my therapist thinks that that's not healthy, but I'm like, I don't care. It's healthy for me. Like I
Well, you
love
find it
laughing
healing.
about all this
Yeah.
stuff. So yeah, I don't want my therapist to see this show because a lot of it is about not her, but it's about like it's about something we discussed, and I know she'll be like, "That's not good. You shouldn't mention that." I'm like, "It's funny, babe. Trust me."
Can you imagine like she sees your show and then you just get like a text message being like, all future meetings are cancelled, never contact this number again?
Oh, nah, she would. She's way too nice. She wouldn't
Nice.
do that. I hope not. Oh, touch wood.
Do you think she will see your show?
I don't think so. I hope
Nice.
not. But if she does, that's okay too, because it would actually help her understand me more. I've been
Oh,
seeing her for like 3 years. She's the best.
why don't you, I can see this is like a TV show. Why don't you perform the show for her during one of your sessions so she could see what you're about?
Yeah, our sessions go for an hour. That could work out perfectly.
And then you can like time it perfectly in case it's too short or too long or you want to work on a bit. You
Yeah,
just,
true.
yeah.
And then she starts to ask me questions. I'm like, oh, no, I need to. We're
Crowd
going to
work
go into my
later.
runtime.
That's so nice. So do you find it's like quite healing and cathartic doing the show as well? Like being able to laugh and get it out of your system?
Yeah, because I think for most of my life, up until my mid-20s, I kept so many things a secret about myself and my experiences. So, like, to be able to just talk about them and laugh about them with a room full of people, it just feels freeing. And it feels like, yeah, it feels like releasing stuff. You know what I
Mm.
mean? Because I had all this anxiety about my health for years, for like a lot of my teens and 20s. And it felt like the world was ending. You know what I mean? Because I didn't tell anyone about it. But now I'm like, it's not scary, and let's just talk about it and laugh about it. And yeah, it feels like releasing things. It feels good.
I like that because often when we hold things in, it can kind of explode them. You know, by speaking, we're releasing it, we're letting it go and realizing, oh, I said it out loud. It's not as bad as I thought it was.
Yeah, totally. And it's like mental health is something we all deal with. So I'm like, I just want to make us all feel a bit lighter about it. You know what I mean?
Amazing. That sounds so great. So you said you're touring it around Australia and especially at Melbourne for the comedy festival. The dates will be there so people can check it out. Are they at like a similar time or that varies? People can just check it out. Any last bits that you
I
want
know
people to
Melbourne
know?
is around 6:10 or 6:20.
Oh, nice. That's perfect time for me. I don't like the late shows, so thank you.
Same. Perfect time
Yeah.
for me as well. Because then I get to go see other shows after it and I can just like let my hair down and go,
Mm.
my show's done. And then Adelaide, I think it's around 8 something. I actually don't know the rest. I don't know.
People can check it out. Just
Yeah.
remind everyone the states you're going to.
Oh, yes. I'm going to Adelaide, Melbourne, Brisbane, Sydney, and then we will be announcing Perth and Canberra soon. And then I'll be going to the UK in September, hopefully. We'll see.
Okay, two questions. That's so exciting. Well, Canberra and I forget the other place you said. Is that going to be after or during?
After Perth and Canberra will be in
Perth.
June or July, I think.
Amazing. And UK, I know you've done it before. You've been to UK, but that's pretty exciting. What's happening there? Because you said it's not confirmed, but it sounds like it's
Yeah,
close.
don't know yet. Don't know. Definitely doing London again. But last year I did 5 cities in England.
Oh,
But just because I have my dog now, I feel weird if I leave him for too long. I
yeah.
just like because he's still a baby. But I'll see how he's going. But I'll probably do a few cities again.
Nice.
It's so fun. I love going to the UK.
Do you find there's a big difference between the UK crowds and the Australian crowds?
Yeah, the UK crowds are just down to have fun way more. Like they just, well, maybe that's just my audience. They're just like, I don't know what it is, but they're just, or maybe it's because my show was more developed I went in September last year too. So maybe the show was better, but they loved it. They just loved it and they loved meeting me after. And they're just such a good vibe. In every city I went to in the UK, such a good vibe.
Nice. Well done.
Mm.
And before we do a rapid fire segment to wrap up the podcast,
Mm.
we've spoken a lot about Tilly. What has she done? I know you said if you never met her, your life would be very different. Is she still someone that you collaborate with, and how does she inspire you? Or how do you work together as well?
We don't really collaborate much anymore just because we live in different cities. So when we see each other now,
As friends?
we just have fun. Like
Yeah.
we still collaborate, but not in a work way as much. Like she was here just after I got my puppy. She was here in October last year, and she was here for 3 days. And we created a new character called Bernadette, and we just talked about her the whole time. And like we don't make videos about Bernadette,
Yeah.
but like we send each other voice messages as Bernadette all the time. Like I reckon Tilly and I, in a past life, we were children who were friends and we died as children. That's a theory
Like in a
we
playground.
have. We were
Yeah.
like playing out in the snow and we froze to death or something. Because her and I are actually really different in a lot of ways, but with our sense of humor and our playfulness, where like we could just play all day. We just laugh so hard when we're together. So
That's the best.
it's so good. Yeah. I feel like I have a lot of great comedy relationships and they all bring out something different. And hers is definitely the childish, playful character kind of thing.
That is so good. And one of the takeaways of this chat is by embracing you, you've been able to meet these people. So, like, by honoring yourself, and now, some people don't even have the one person, and you've got like different people. We've just been focusing
Mm.
on Tilly and some of the other people, but you've got like different groups to bring out or different individuals to bring out the best in you. I think that's so amazing. That makes life so much better. I'm jealous, but I'm proud of you at the same time because you can just get that because, life should be playing fun. And,
Yeah.
you've got elements of that as well. So that's pretty cool. Well done.
That's awesome. Thank you.
So what we're going to do now to wrap up the podcast is to do a rapid fire segment. So the first thing that springs, it's pretty easy. First thing that springs to mind, and I will not comment on them because I'll derail them.
Oh, I'm scared, babe.
Actually, we'll start here. What was that moment like when you first got comedy representation?
Oh, um, good. Wait, how quick do my answers
You
have to
can
be?
go as long as you want. It's up to you.
Oh, probably. I got really excited when I got repped by my current management because that was my dream when I was like starting out. It was exciting.
And who are they again? But I know who they are because I've been speaking to them, and they're really good.
It's
From
creative rep slash
Yeah.
token. Yeah.
Nice. Oh, do they work? How does that work?
Oh, so they have a few different kind of sections of their company, branches. Yeah,
Yeah.
tokens more for like stand up, and then token events is like the touring stuff, and then creative rep is for more kind of like actors, writers, general creatives, and then they have a production company. So it's like four groups within the company. Yeah.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
And what's your biggest pet peeve?
Honestly, I really hate slow walkers, or
Same.
just not necessarily slow walkers, but people that will just stop, or people who will walk right in the middle and you can't go around them. Like people with bad walking etiquette, that's definitely a pet peeve of mine.
I know. And unfortunately, my wife, she's a fast walker, but sometimes she'll just slow down in the middle.
Dangerous because it's like someone could walk into you bad.
I know. I say that. It's like, oh, it's fine. And then you hear like screeches and beeps and like cars
Yeah.
blowing up, like, oh, it was someone
Yeah.
else. But anyway, back to what brings the best creative content out of you?
Oh, probably like that playful nature and like just being in touch with my inner child and being like something that just feels exciting and funny to me and playful. Yeah.
Nice. I won't comment on them, but still nice. How do you deal with the bombs?
Oh, I just get McDonald's after. I
What's
always say
your
like after a gig, if it goes well, I get McDonald's as a treat, or if I bomb, I get McDonald's as a treat. So I'm getting McDonald's either way, which is awesome.
what's your go-to meal?
Well, I cop a lot of flack for this, but I get a fillet o fish and a chocolate thick shake.
Wow, what a horrible combination.
I
I'm
know, I
sorry.
think it's great, but sometimes I get a McCrispy now instead of a fillet o
You
fish.
get a fish burger at McDonald's. I am blown away. I'm
Have you
sorry
had
for
it? It's
offending
so
you.
good.
Okay, well, I haven't had McDonald's in like 15 years, but if I was to go, I would not have the fish burger.
Well, good. More for me.
Well, I like how you dealt with that conflict. Well done. Do you ever get mistaken for anyone?
Well, people tell me I look like Jack Whitehall, that British
I
comedian.
can see that now.
But then being mistaken for, there's another creator called Tim Collins, 100% that Tim. He's an
Yep.
Australian content creator. Occasionally people confuse us because we have a few overlaps with our content, like office characters. So, but yeah, one time someone went up to him and they were like, "Oh my God, Dell coworker." He's like, "No, I'm a different person." But yeah, he's hilarious. He's great.
Oh, that's so funny. And I think you've collaborated, and I don't know him. Will, is that his name? And I think you said before that, and you guys don't look anything alike, but I think you said some people have maybe, or maybe he said some people have got you guys mixed up. I don't know if you.
Oh, maybe he said it. Yeah, I think no one's ever said that to me. But him and I do very similar things. We both do stand up and unbearable characters online. So maybe yeah, I can see how people can confuse us for sure.
Okay.
Yeah,
If you could have any superhero power, what would it be and why?
yeah. Oh, probably not time travel. I'm gonna say teleportation,
And why?
just because it's like I could just visit my friends in New York like right now. You know what I mean? Or like go to Sydney right now. I just hate airports and I hate flying. So yeah,
I, I think I would do that one as well.
yeah, that's a good.
What would you do if you knew you cannot fail?
Wow. If I knew I could not fail, I actually feel like I'm already just doing what I want. Um, yeah, I'm kind of just doing what I want already.
Nice. Isn't that empowering to hear? Even though
Yeah,
you said it, yeah.
wow. I didn't I didn't realize that. I mean, it took me a while to get here, but yeah, I kind of just do what I want now. That's crazy.
Awesome. Next big dream or goal?
Oh, well, I definitely want to work on this project that I'm being secretive about. And there's another thing I'm working on as well, which I don't want to say. But I would also eventually like to venture into music a bit more and do some musical comedy. Yeah, that's something I'd like to do as at some point.
Can you sing or play an instrument?
I can't play an instrument. I'm
Uh, you're,
learning. Um,
you're modest. You can sing, can't you?
I don't know. That's the problem. I can do so many voices, so I sometimes don't know what my voice is.
Yeah.
So I had a singing lesson booked a few months ago, but then I got sick and I canceled it. Then I just never made a new one because I got so busy. But I want to learn how to sing as myself.
Yeah.
Because I do musical comedy videos with my friend Says, and we did a live performance once, which was fun.
Nice.
But yeah, I kind of want to learn a bit more and try a few more things in music.
Very cool. Second last question. Any advice you want to give to people who want to try something different or new, but perhaps a bit fearful of doing so?
Oh, I really just think, and I feel like we've talked about this heaps of times on this podcast already. If it really feels right in your gut, and if the thought of it really excites you and just feels right, you have nothing to lose by trying. And then if you try it and it excites you even more, then really just go for it. And if you try it and you don't like it, abandon it, do something else. But I just think I just really trust my gut with everything. And if something is feeling right, if something's feeling exciting, I just follow that. So yeah, just follow your gut. That sounds so cliche, but it's just like such a truth.
I love that. I wish I heard that during my accounting days. I think everyone could use that. Last question before I ask how people can follow you and keep up to date with you. What is the one question I should have asked you?
Bad. What's the one question you should have asked me? That's a, I don't know. That's an interesting one. What are some examples of what do people say for like, I don't know.
Most of the time, it's like 5 hours. I like don't edit. The only time I edit is just the pause for like 5 minutes of thinking. It could be anything that's on your mind. It could be, do you want to tie up something, or maybe something that you've been like thinking about? There's no rule. Sometimes people don't even answer it.
What question should you have asked me? Probably just something about my dog because I'm just obsessed with him and I talk about him a lot.
Name, breed. I know you've told me, oh, you didn't tell me the name. Name, breed, and what joy does he give you?
So his name's Billy. He's a golden retriever. He's 7 months old.
Cute.
And I don't know, the last few weeks he's just like maybe he's just matured a bit more, but he's less puppy-like. Like he's less just wants to like chew things and play. Like he's more just like excited to come up and like cuddle me, and he gets excited when I even when I go down and get my Uber Eats and come back now. He gets so excited, and he's just like just such a pure, gentle energy to have with me all the time. He's just the best.
Amazing. I love that you have that. Our dogs sound very similar. And
Oh,
before
nice.
we go, how can people follow you and keep up to date with you?
On Instagram, I am Nick White 49. TikTok, if you just search Nick White, you should find me. My username is Miss Nikki Wanty on that, which is a whole story as well. Oh, YouTube. I'm getting into YouTube. I'm releasing my special this week. That's something I haven't
Oh,
thought.
we didn't talk about that. That's
No, yeah,
exciting.
no one knew. So, well, when I say special, I'm just uploading a YouTube video of a show I got filmed.
That's awesome.
Um, yeah, so YouTube, Nick White. I don't even know what my YouTube name is. Probably Nick White, comedian. If you search that, I'll come up hopefully.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's the
I'll
main
find it.
things. Yeah.
Cool. I'll find them. I'm excited for your comedy special and your upcoming shows. All of that's in the episode notes. Thank you so much. I love your outlook and your playful mentality. It's amazing. And yeah, thank you so much for doing this chat.
Thank you. That was so fun. Thanks for having me.
I love how Nick talks about how inner trust, having fun, and being yourself is the golden ticket to success. Nick uses his intuition to help guide him when making a decision, and the results are brilliant. He explains that he could churn out content that he doesn't feel passionate about and get a lot of views, but ultimately, that doesn't excite him. I love this because, especially in creativity, if you don't have a clear goal or a why, or do things without intent, this can often lead to creative burnout and, of course, a diminished product. Nick is playing the long game by following his passions, and the results are fruitful. So I'll leave you with this epic quote. The intuitive mind is a sacred gift, and the rational mind is a faithful servant. We have created a society that honors the servant and has forgotten the gift. Albert Einstein.
Thank you for listening to the Funny and Failure podcast, exploring the deeper side of comedy.